to get to the big goal, you need to have those little steps along the way. And so if you're going to have this goal, have a plan to get to the goal that involves a learning process where you're going to fail, learn from that failure, and it's not critical. It's a learning lesson to get to that next step. And I think that's a roadblock for a lot of people is once they hit that, they stop going for the goal.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Blah, Blah, Blah Something Wellness podcast. We are wrapping up Reframing Resolutions for Success, talking about mindset and goal setting. And I am joined. We have a full house today. We got some of our team. We got some new faces, and we're going to have an amazing conversation. So with that, I am your host, Tami Sharp, and I'm going to have Mike Badgley. You can introduce yourself, Greg, Lawson, and then our special guests can introduce themselves. So take it away.
Well, howdy. So my name's Mike Badgley. I'm like anybody, the Marines, or vegans, are always going to tell you what they are. I'm one of those. I'm a Marine. Was a Marine Corps infantryman, went officer program, then ended up becoming a cop for 5 years. Absolutely loved it. Was a SWAT officer, SWAT sniper. And unfortunately, got shot at one too many times for too little money, and then made a call to go outside of that. I ran a commercial insurance agency for a decade, had my own suicidal crisis that I'm very open about, and that resulted in me going into suicide prevention. And now I work as a resilience support coordinator at the Department of Children, Youth, and Families.
Thank you, Mike. And my name is Greg Nottingham, and I am a retired sergeant from the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, where I served for 31 years. And I currently am the chief of staff and a master coach here at Law Enforcement Coaching.
Mike Lawson, I did 24 years with the San Diego Sheriff's Department. I retired about 3 years ago. I am the current wellness coordinator, one-man wellness unit for Chula Vista Police Department. It's about a 400 employee department just south of San Diego, California, and happy to be here.
Sure. My name's Alex Mann. I'm a sergeant with the Norfolk County Sheriff's Office in Massachusetts. Still on, going into my 29th year. I also do improv, stand-up, background acting, and recently wrote a book.
I am a medically retired cop. I worked on the East Coast Patrol, peer support, SWAT, wellness coordinator, police academy instructor. Also was a strength coach at Yale and Georgetown Universities doing sports ministry while I was a cop. And in LA, I was a police chaplain in South Central and Torrance PD, as well as a strength coach and sports psychology consultant for Velocity Sports, which is a private facility for elite athletes.
Awesome. So I want to set the baseline because this is Reframing Resolutions. Now we are coming into the end of January for this one. So the resolutions that people set have already started to maybe dissipate a little bit, or some if you have discipline. So Matt, you seem like you have really good discipline. That you seem like you got your stuff together on that. What's your mindset around discipline?
That's a hard one to answer for the broader public because I've been doing things like working out hard since 6th grade, eating strict since 7th grade, started journaling and meditating in high school on and off, not as discipline. So a lot of these things come easier for me. And what I try to encourage cops to do is the things that you can do to improve your performance while life is steady and stable are the things that will be your anchors during the storm. So whether it's eating clean, working out, getting enough sleep, managing stress, do you need to talk to a therapist? Can you do these things before a bomb blows up in your life and it's total chaos and then you're trying to develop habits? So left of bang, implementing things in your life versus right of bang, everything falls apart. There's collateral damage, often with the people you care about the most. And then after people are hurt, we get some emotional sobriety and I want to change, but that's like waiting until you have a mouthful of cavities before you go to the dentist versus let's brush and floss every night, get an annual checkup, get a professional cleaning a couple times a year, and try to stay on top of our the cumulative stress and the traumas that we face on the job.
And I love that, because one of the things that we're doing with law enforcement coaching this year is really, really, really hammering in the proactive, because law enforcement is reactive, and the law enforcement wellness one was non-existent. And now the little bit that's there is still a very reactive model. And like with coaching, one of the things that we hear a lot is, well, I haven't needed it yet. And I was like, ooh, then we've already failed. If that's what your mindset is, we've now failed. So I went back to the drawing board to fix the messaging, because exactly what you said, like, don't wait until the dumpster fire to try to put it out. Like, do things ahead of time so that you're ready and you're mentally prepared. And that mindset part is so huge. So with Alex, he brings a little bit of a different flair to this one, because you do improv. And I want to do this shout out, because I never talk about this one. I get to talk about a lot. My background as a teenager and in my 20s was in modeling and acting. I actually didn't go to college. I went to acting school because I thought I wanted to be something, and then learned other things. But we do something in our coaching. I teach all my coaches the philosophy of yes and we teach this in the classes. It's very simple to change a yeah, but, which is a negative statement, into a yes and, which is a positive, and you can build on that. But what that actually is an improv technique. So, do you want to talk a little bit about what you do with your improv?
Sure. So when I got exposed to it, what I realized was the training I was getting in the classes was very similar to what I had with the universal IPC, interpersonal communication skill set, or verbal judo. Those things were tended to be more confrontational, and improv was also accepting other people's reality. And one of the things that had evolved over the course of my career was I started realizing the shock and awe, the big voice, the big guy in the room does not work with people who are in an emotional crisis, drug withdrawal, or on the spectrum. There's just, you can't meet them at that level. So to get control and kind of change the scene, we use the word scene in both worlds. That you change your energy, you change how you're presenting. And for me, it was an amazing epiphany to say, oh my God, I've been doing this even before I got into improv. And now I blended both of these worlds where I feel like I am so much better at communication and my own personal awareness of who I am in the moment, and I'm very present. So instead of using my position of being a large male and years of law enforcement experience, or being a sergeant, or just the senior guy in the room, I try and appreciate what is being inputted around me before I start putting my input back into the room.
I love that. And I think we need, in this day and age, we all need to take a step back. Everything is very quick moving and very reactionary. And there is a difference between reacting and responding. Reacting typically is reacting from an emotional, heated space where you're not necessarily thinking. Responding is taking a step back, taking a breath, and like looking at it from a bigger vantage point. So I want to kind of lead in, and I want my team to talk too. I know I'm doing all the talking, but um, right now, as we go through this year, we came out the gate just lots of. I mean, it's not even out the gate. We're just been in a worldwide dumpster fire for a few years now. And it just seems like you get one thing done and it's whack-a-mole. There's always something else coming up. So as we're going in and people are trying to just hold on to their goals of whatever that is, but we're kind of getting just ping-ponged around by the different influences on social media and the news, the stories that are popping up. And I know that a lot of just everybody's struggling. Our first responders are definitely struggling. So I want to set the baseline and really focus in on how we can help our audience with mindset and just having the self-awareness and the discipline for themselves, whatever that may be, whether it comes from a fitness point, the improv. I love the improv and the comedy. We need to be laughing through some of this, because what else can we do at this point besides freaking laugh? It's so bad. But anyway, my team, do you guys have anything you want to throw in?
I love the yes and. That is an absolute tool that I continue to use day to day. And it's when we talk about the goals and the goal setting, maybe I could jump ahead on this. I realize kind of what the problem is a lot of people will set the goals, but they're not changing any habits. They're not changing their environment. They're not changing behaviors. And what they're doing is they're setting yourself up for failure. when you're just saying, hey, to get to these goals. And so I really have to learn, like, what are the behaviors that I'm doing to try and get to this? And trying to find, like, what can I do in these small little ways to move towards that goal? I'd say definitely have the goals, but you got to have it with behaviors and changing the environment. And we see this all the time with addicts that we work with in the past. What are what they get out of those environments? What do? They change their environment, and they're less likely to be able to reuse again. And if they don't change their environments, they're falling back in the same patterns of behaviors. So that's type of thing as well. Like, what are we doing in our own world, in our own environment, to then be able to reach those goals?
Ooh, I want to unpack that because when I can hear the audience already, some people being like, okay, to change the environment means they might need to leave law enforcement. But that doesn't necessarily mean leave law enforcement. That could mean, how do you change the environment within your department? How can you change the environment within your four walls at your home? It doesn't necessarily mean run away from the problem. It's lean into it, because what you resist persists. So if you want to have more improved functionality, how can we look at what kind of things can we implement within ourselves and within the department to change the culture so we don't have to run away from it? People are, and we know people are leaving. Alex, did you have something?
Yeah, I think when we set goals, it's rather a larger goal, and people don't plan for that. To get to the big goal, you need to have those little steps along the way. And so if you're going to have this goal, have a plan to get to the goal that involves a learning process where you're going to fail, learn from that failure, and it's not critical. It's a learning lesson to get to that next step. And I think that's a roadblock for a lot of people, is once they hit that, they stop going for the goal.
Real quick, yeah, the goal part is obviously, I think we all have goals, but it's so important to share that with someone, to who that person you check in with, the accountability person that could be like, hey, how's that, that diet going? Just that check-in can be that part where it just keeps you going. If you don't have anybody to check in with, if you're not sharing your experience, I think that's when we kind of fail with some of our goals, is not having that person to help us, a mentor, a coach, a chaplain. I use my chaplain friends all the time, and they're just a very good neutral person to me that I can go to. I could share goals or whatever's going on in my life, and I know they'll just listen and just, sometimes give advice, but sometimes it's mostly just listening.
There's so much power in just listening. I think we live in a society where a lot of people like to give advice, or especially with men, like to fix things. So if somebody comes to you and they have a problem, how can we fix it? And I've said this a million times. Next month is going to be balancing relationship dynamics. So I'll give a little cheat sheet to that too. Women do not want to be fixed. We just want to be heard. I always get a laugh when I say that. The guys are like, shit, I know that. Uh, but we try to fix, and a lot of time just allowing someone the space to just be. Like for me, I mean, my team, I talk to all my team. Greg is my first person, everybody, but I will vent to Greg, especially because Chris and I are in business together. We're in relationship together, right? So there's some times that I cannot vent to him, or I'm dealing with something and he's too close that I need somebody else. So then I'll call Greg and be like, all right. And he can give me advice, but just holding space and just letting me get myself through it plays such a huge role with that. Matt, you're a chaplain, so do you kind of find that works for you as well, or how do you process?
If we're talking about listening can be incredibly healing. And you're so right. I think it was 30 years ago, I read the book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And they're like, yeah, women don't want fix. We want to fix things. Then my best friend is a feminist theologian, psychologist. And early on, she told me, shut up. I don't need you to do anything for me. I just want you to listen. But a big problem with first responders, veterans, men in general, before we even try to define what are our values, so therefore we can self-reflect, am I living those values out? And then determine my mission and set my goals. Like, we need a map, and we do need a support team, is we need to calm down our physiology, because most dudes got the pedal to the floor and have no understanding of the parasympathetic nervous system. So we need to teach people how to take their foot off the gas, tap the brakes, slow down, pull into a driveway or garage, actually turn the engine off, rotate the tires, change the oil, do some diagnostics. So we need to calm down our physiology, and we don't talk about that in the academy and in service. And nobody's getting any like real exposure. When I talk about, I think cops, you should be getting your blood labs every year with your hormones, your blood sugar, and your inflammation markers. Everybody should consider an Aura ring to track your heart rate variability, your sleep, your stress levels, what people, places, things, food, and drink are recharging your battery or draining your battery. And also, maybe go get an EEG. There's different things we can do with labs, with HRV, with EEG. You should definitely go to the cardiologist if you're in your 40s and you're a cop, and see how the stress is affecting your physiology. Because so much of the time people say, I'm fine, I'm good. And even if they're defining their goals and working with a coach and a therapist, if their HRV sucks, their sleep sucks, and the gas pedals to the floor, they're not really in touch with their head and their heart. And I know guys think that's woo woo, hippie, soft, weak, or gay, but like really, we all have feelings and emotions. And you see a bunch of shit on the job that if it doesn't affect your emotions, like you're not a human being. So that's my 2 cents on some of that stuff.
Thank you. You sound like me, and it's great. You're the masculine version with the woo. But what we've had a department that was incentivizing people. You'd give $50 just to go get your physical, and they weren't doing it. And so the peer support leads were like, why aren't they going? And the consensus was like, they didn't want to know, they didn't want to hear what they'd find out. That's a problem. If you are not going to the doctor because you're afraid of what they might find, here's your sign. You need to go to the doctor. Like, what are you doing? If you have that proactive preventative maintenance approach that you can catch things before they take you out. And I'll use my dad as an example. My dad he was old school. I've shared this a million times. Military, old school law enforcement. He never went to the doctor. He didn't do proactive maintenance. He didn't talk about shit. He told stories. That was his way of therapy. Like, he'd go to the lunches and just talk story, but he never went. The way that he found out he had stage 4 prostate cancer and 6 months to live was that he was at a law enforcement retreat. He had 2 beers and hit the ground face first, passed out. And they're like, well, that's not normal. So he went to the doctor, and guess what? He found out he had stage 4 prostate cancer. Had he had been going to regular checkups, we probably would have caught it much sooner. So get your ass to the doctor. You also talked about hormones, and I've been preaching that for the last few episodes. Hormones, especially you hit about 35, 36, 37, you need to start like studying and being like, hey, something's coming. Once you hit your 40s, men, and I'm going to echo this, if you watch this episode or you've listened to these podcasts, I've said this a million times, I cannot say it enough. Men, you guys do 20 plus years of a career that is high adrenal. You are fight or flight. Holding that, you are constantly on guard, and then you retire or you leave after, in your 40s, 50s. Your hormones, your testosterone, it all takes a dump. You have adrenal fatigue. And then you're also sitting with the who are you after you retire, and who are you now that you're not a cop and you don't have your gun and your badge and a title and people listening. Your wife's now in charge usually. Ha ha ha. But there are so many things. And so that's something that is not getting talked about enough in the suicide space. We all know that the suicide rate is huge, but if you walk it back to why, a lot of it has to do with hormones, and a lot of it has to do with either relationship, hormone, medical. Yes.
Well, and Tammy, that's the message that we need to get out there. It's just that they're not listening. And I can tell you, during my career, I wouldn't have listened. I'm a cop. I don't need that kind of stuff. That's just too touchy-feely for me. I'm going to go out and be a cop, and I don't need to talk about my emotions or go to the doctor and get a checkup. And the fire side and the other first responders, they've got it figured out. And they do their annual physicals, and they check all your hormones. They check all those levels. They have a physical fitness level that they have to meet, and they can do it, and they get it done. But for some reason, you take cops, and mostly male cops, and they just can't get it through their thick head that it's time to start taking care of yourself if you're going to take care of others. And that's the message we've got to get out there. And it's just not playing right now. And we need to try to change that.
Alex.
One of and we kind of touched on it earlier, is about the listening aspect. And it's important that not only are we listening to other people, but we find that person, whether it's, someone connected at work or somebody outside of law enforcement, that listens to you, that you can check in with a regular daily basis. Because I've done it, and I've had it done to me with people whose opinion I valued, who, when they say, what's going on? Nothing. They know I said that nothing completely different from 2 weeks ago. And they go, all right, no, seriously, what's going on? And right now, and from personal reflection, my best friend of almost 20 plus years just passed away in June. He was that guy for me. So I'm like, in all honesty, I am looking for that person to fill that void because he wasn't taking care of himself. And I had already started trying to expand my friend group to include other people. But when he passed, it left me with this hole of I've had so many minor accomplishments between the performance end and the book that he would have been the person I called and said, guess what I did? Because he knew this stuff was coming. So it's important to have that ability to listen and be listened to.
Can I jump in with a little bit of the hormone stuff?
Yeah.
So guys don't want to go to the doctor, but right now there's cops across the country in their 20s that are going to men's clinics, and it's pay to play, get 200 to 300 milligrams a week, TRT, testosterone replacement. And the men's clinic are not going to ask about nutrition, sleep, stress, lifestyle, anything like that. So dudes are hopping on and avoiding like seeing a real functional or integrative doctor. And so people are aware your PPO has an annual preventative wellness exam. You can do your own homework and go in and say, I want all of these things checked, or I have no affiliation, but I just talked to a company called Opt Health. A bunch of cops told me about it. And they do blood panels every 3 months. The lead doctor, Dr. Graham Simpson, is a super famous functional and integrative doctor, and they give a significant discount to first responders and veterans. And they do look at hormones, blood sugar, nutrients, and inflammation from a functional and integrative perspective. And I think the first blood lab is like $100. And I'm not using them. I don't get paid by them because I have a functional doctor already. But it is an option if you live somewhere and it's like, what's functional and integrative medicine? My primary care doesn't want to look at my hormones. They give a significant discount for labs, and they look at them every 3 months to fine tune your nutrients, your supplements, your hormones, and things like that. So it could be an option, and they're not just going to give you a massive dose of TRT without looking at your lifestyle issues.
Well, and I love that because we learned firsthand, if you are taking the T-shot, you are getting hormones, especially for men. And I will talk to the women, and just so we know, like, I'm going to do an entire month just for women. So we'll get to the women, but the men need to hear us a little bit more. But if you have the wrong dosage of hormones, and hormones are not just, it's one thing. Hormones fluctuate all the time. And so depending on where your stress levels are, where your nutrition's at, where you are with age, what's going on in your life, your hormone, it's not just going to be the same all the time. And if that dosage is not right, it can spiral you into roid rage. Like, you can have a short fuse. Some of these cops that we see that are just making stupid ass calls, like bad stuff, the ones that are making it hard for everybody else, that are like, what happened? A lot of it, yes, there's the stress of it. Yes, there's all of the other factors, but hormones absolutely play a part of that.
And just to follow up on that, and Tami, you guys all know I work part-time as a phlebotomist at Heart Fit for Duty here in Arizona. And that's exactly, we do the same thing. We cater to first responders. You have to be in the first responder space to be able to come to them. So you have to either be a first responder or a family member of a first responder. We have a PCP side, we have an occupational health side, and the fire guys, like I said, they come in once a year. They're always getting their labs done. They're always getting their physicals taken care of. And the PCP side, we do the same thing. It's not just here's your testosterone. It's let's check your labs. Let's see where you're at, what's your lifestyle at. And they've got a really good nutritionalist, Kim Cairns, and she's absolutely outstanding. And she knows how to work with cops and firefighters to get them on the right food path. So a little shout out to them, because that's exactly what we're doing here is trying to get cops inside out, from the brain to the body, to get inside out and work better and feel better and be stronger.
I love all this. And actually, one of the things I keep coming up with this, because I've been through the hormone replacement therapy, went through it all as well. It's interesting that we talk about listening and listening to others, but are we listening to ourselves? Are we listening to our bodies? These fatigue issues, those types of things that go on with low T, these are symptoms of, the environment that we're in, decisions we're making. And it's the paradox of the helper, which I'm not sure if we're all familiar, but I'll explain it anyways, is that to really be a helper, you have to first help yourself. And it's like what they say when you're putting on, like, the airplane, they're doing the safety brief, oxygen mask comes down, put your oxygen mask on first. And how often are our officers, cops in the streets, firefighters, how often are we listening to our bodies? How are we listening to what's our, like, even just the stress levels? Like, where are we holding it? Do we even know where we hold it? In fact, actually, for an example, I had a pretty bad month last month, and I was in a team meeting, and my boss called me afterwards. She goes, "You look like you're about ready to fight somebody." I had no idea my body language was exuding that. I was showing the stress in my body and didn't actually have that link between. So when we're talking about listening, I feel like we do need to listen to ourselves. And it kind of goes back to what Matt said a little bit earlier as well. What are our values? I think that is one of the most important things we can identify is what are our values and how are we living with an alignment or not in alignment with it? Because if we're not living in alignment, the stress levels are going to be so much higher.
The listening to your body. So this is where my woo-woo stuff comes in because it's not freaking woo-woo. I know I say it all the time, but it's not woo-woo. When your body has physical issues, it is typically because there is something out of alignment mentally, emotionally, and sometimes and most often spiritually. So yesterday, I got taken out by the weight of the world. Like, I had a down day. I should have been working. It was Sunday, so it's a day to relax. I should have been working on things like my website and business stuff, hanging out with the family, and I got pummeled by the weight of the world. There's a lot going on right now, and I'm an empath, I'm an intuitive, I'm sensitive. There's a lot of people that are very sensitive, whether they realize that or not. And for me, I kind of get insensitive to the empaths because it's like if you're getting taken out by every single thing and you're crying about every problem out there, you have not trained yourself how to actually have boundaries and to how to be in control of your emotions instead of having them be in control of you. So there's a lot there. I'm very strong with my empathness. And I'm not talking empathy. I'm talking about being an empath, being sensitive to energy. A lot of first responders are actually very sensitive to energy. Not only are you guys trained tactically to read a room, but you have to trust your gut. And when you guys go to calls and you go into houses and situations, your gut is what's leading you. You have the protocols and all of the tactical stuff to back it up with the skill set, but your gut is what's telling you, am I safe? What's going on? So law enforcement, when I first stepped into this space, I was like, oh, I don't know if I should share what I do. Now I'm like, oh, shit, you guys are masters at it already. Let's talk about it. Your bodies are already talking to you all the time. The problem is you don't make the connections because that's where it starts getting dismissed as woo-woo. And we live in a society where it's here's a Band-Aid, here's a Band-Aid. My lower back has been jacked up for a while. And I've gone to chiropractor. I was doing yoga. I've been doing stretching and nothing was working. And I finally found a chiropractor who does a technique. It's called the NET technique. And it's muscle testing and it's going into the subconscious. It's my kind of stuff. So I went for my adjustment last week. And before I'm like, my lower back, I need you to just get in there and just crack the crap out of it. I need you to get in there. And he's like, before we do that, he had my arm up in the, any of you guys familiar with muscle testing? Okay, we'll have to do a whole nother thing on muscle testing because that's real too. But he had me put my arm up and he asked me a couple questions of like, where am I weak right now? What am I most stressed out about? So lower back, and this is in traditional Chinese medicine, this is in Ayurveda, this is in all of the woo-woo stuff. Lower back typically represents either financial stress or lack of support. And so he's like, which is it? And I was like, oh, I can just put my arm down, money for sure right now. And so we did a few things to clear all of the fear and blocks that I had mentally around the money, the scarcity mindset. And so we did that first, and then he went in to do the adjustment. I left that feeling, not only did I get adjusted and feel better, mentally and emotionally, I felt better as well because I addressed the root. Yes.
I think it's Dr. John Sarno, but I know it's Dr. Sarno. On the books written 30 or 40 years ago, a medical doctor showed that 80% of back pain is from stress. And then there's other, mind body medicine, Dr. Joan Borisenko. I could go on down the list. But yeah, a lot of our problems are physiology is letting us know we're stuffing with our mental health, essentially, and all this stress and cumulative trauma, which is why get your blood work, HRV, get a sleep study. then I call bullshit that I'm good, I'm fine, because we can look at some markers and see you're not. And if you're familiar with neurofeedback, EEG, I do know Wave Neuroscience is across the country, and I think it's only $100 to go get an EEG mapping, and you can see how overactive or calm your brain really is. So we can say, I'm good, but we can look at our blood, our EEG, our HRV, and sleep and see, no, I'm not. And maybe that's the speed bump that some cop needs to have some emotional sobriety, that self-care is not selfish and I need to work on my own shit, versus wait until you have a heart attack, wait until you have a divorce, wait until, and what you said maybe about roid rage, some of the stuff we see cops do that are really stupid could be untreated PTSD. They're losing their cool, but mental health resources are reactive only or stigmatized. They're maybe not culturally competent or trauma informed. Or it could be failure to train, the elephant in the room. If you look at motor skill development and complex decision making, cops have way more tools on their belt than they ever had, more electronics, but the academies no longer. I've been through 2 6-month academies because they didn't take laterals back in the day. There's not sufficient motor skill development to be good at martial arts and tactical shooting and emergency driving. So
Yep.
most cops can't shoot, can't fight, and they're learning how to drive on the job. But when they make a mistake, we say we trained you. But if you look at motor skill development in sports, your youth athlete gets more hours in a week of motor skill development for a game than a cop will get in a year for life and death. And marksmanship qualifications are not police training, like squeezing the trigger, closing an eye, and aiming at a target. And a lot of the DT or arrest and control, depending on your state, those updates 2 or 4 hours a year are just PowerPoint. Here's the new legislation. They're not scrimmaging. They're not getting, it's a failure to train is a big issue as well, which leads to issues with PTSD. And I'll shut up.
That's one of the things I love about improv is it gives you a space where you can fail. And that's one of the things that I've been trying to push is that you need to role play these scenarios out where failure is the option to learn from before you actually do it in the real world. And then the other point I wanted to make is that the inputs that we get either through the news, your people around you, social media, it's two extremes. It's life is great, super successful, or thoughts and prayers, everything is going to an end. And it feels like so many people just don't want to have a bad day. Like a bad day is the worst thing in the world. Well, you can't have a good day until you've had a bad day. You can't appreciate a good day. And for me, when I came to that epiphany, I started realizing any day above the ground is a good day because somebody didn't wake up. Somebody lost a loved one, and I'm still kicking. So if that's my baseline of okay, anything else is going to be good, even if it is bad, it just means I'm surviving and I'm still getting through and I'm okay. And I think that's where we don't regulate our inputs and we don't regulate our own thought process of what does it take to be happy? And is it okay to be sad? Like, we don't want to be sad. We don't want to have a moment of feeling depressed and think it's depression.
Yeah, I love that. Because leaning into the suck is one of the most important things we can do. And we, especially in this American culture, it's always towards comfort and realizing that comfort is just something that is temporary, that makes you feel good in the moment, that facing those challenges and embracing that pain is one of the most important tools we can learn. And just accepting that there's going to be hardship, accepting like the emotions of the moment. Like, hey, you know what? I'm having a bad time right now. I need to step away from this, regulate, respond, and just be accepting of reality on reality's terms rather than trying to deny it, because reality doesn't care what the way we view it. It's still out there. It's reality. We can't adjust that. And so we have to learn how to adjust our perspective on it and just embracing the suck. And we all know it. It's just there's a time where it's like, this is going to suck, but it's going to be okay because I'm going to figure a way out. And it's really important to have that mindset of I'm going to figure a way out, because hope is a habit, not a belief.
When you also said something, you said the perspective of reality. What's your reality? So right now, that's part of the disconnect and the divide across the country is that I will say, here's my little conspiracy. We're living in a fucking giant psyop. Like, if you're on social media, it depends on where you are across the country. You are being intentionally fed a different narrative than what other people are seeing. With all of these videos and situations and headlines, there is no right or wrong because everybody's seeing it from a different angle. And then we have to go through, and there's the emotions and the breaking it down. And there's just so much to it that we are all living in different realities. Even though all 6 of us right here, I guarantee if I were to start getting into what our algorithms are showing us, we all have different versions of what's happening right now. And some people have no clue what's happening because their algorithm is not tuned to it. So we have to learn how to have that awareness of there's reality, but also your reality is going to be what you focus on. So what you guys were saying too, if you're focusing on the negative and you're expecting it to be negative, your life is going to be negative, and your subconscious doesn't want to make you a liar. So it's going to look for everything to back you up and be like, yep, life sucks. And this is bad and that's bad and everything, the world is ending. We're all going to die, blah, blah, blah. And it's going to try to find stuff to confirm that. But if you shift it, I have a great life. I look at the positive. Yes, there's shit all the time, but how do you handle the struggles when they come up? And just echoing what you guys just said, when you're in the suck of it, you're learning so much that is getting you set up to where you want to be. And my word of the year is recalibration. So you can sit with that pain, sit with the suck of it, and then recalibrate. Because if this is not what you want, what do you want? Don't focus on what you don't want. Because if you focus on what you don't want, you're going to get more of that. So focus on what you do want, and then you can start getting the stepping stones and building the muscle memory and taking those little tiny action steps to get you on track to where you actually want to be.
If I was consulting for the police department, the first question I would ask is, what are you doing for your people to help them with wellness, self-care? And I think we all across the board, most departments would be say, well, what do you mean? And what I mean is, are you offering them time to work out on duty, a wellness hour? Are you creating mandatory check-ins or incentivizing those? I know it's hard to make it mandatory, because if you're not doing some of those things, you are failing your people. A lot of young officers come to me, and most of them are 4 to 8 years, and they're exhausted. They're not new anymore. I think we've all been in that point where you're not new, but your eyes are way more wide open than they were when you started, right? And it's, how am I going to manage to do this for 20 plus more years? I mean, the kids nowadays have to work longer, right? So we as departments, as wellness coordinators, as resources, we have to do so much better at proactively changing the culture where you have a wellness check-in. Like, you just do that. You go to critical incident debriefs. You don't make it mandatory, where you just make it common to go to these things and do these things. Because I'm just telling you from what I've seen, if we don't do that, a lot of the younger generation, they're not going to make it. So we got to do better. And that's just my 2 cents as a wellness coordinator. And that's a struggle I have, probably lots of other wellness coordinators, is changing that culture. And I feel like the needle's definitely moving. I mean, we've talked about that in many podcasts, which is good, right? But we also know our profession is slow to change, but we got to get there somehow. So these kind of things, podcasts, offering wellness hours, whatever that is, work out on duty, I would highly encourage that as a department.
Well, the working out on duty has been a controversial topic, and everybody's worried about the liability. And this is where I think law enforcement gets it a little backwards, because fire, and we're kind of saying this because fire is just ahead of the game when it comes to wellness. We can have the whole cop firefighter, back and forth, but they get to work out. And a lot of the PDs are saying, no, it's a liability. They might get injured if they work out on duty. Oh my God, they're going to get injured if they're not working out. Matt, let me ask you this. You have worked with professional athletes. You're working with actual athletes. Let me ask you this. If an athlete, a all-star athlete, was on this podcast right now, would they go from this podcast straight out to whatever field or whatever game? Are they going to go straight to the game with no warm-up, no stretching?
So I was taking notes. I always use sports analogies, right? 90 to 95% of sports is preparation, and you know your schedule and you know your opponents. Strength conditioning, sports medicine, sports nutrition, head coach, position coach, cheerleader, water boy. I'm studying game film. I'm looking at the stats of my opponent, and I know when it happens. Law enforcement is kind of like, we look at a little bit of game film. We do walkthroughs. If anybody played high school football, you walk through with your helmet, then eventually 50% with helmet and shoulder pads, eventually full pads, full speed. Law enforcement, we kind of walk through with the helmets. We watch a little game film. We study the officiating rule book for all the stuff that you're going to get in trouble for. And then we scrimmage flag football a couple of times. And then 5 years later, on a day you don't know, you're playing your Super Bowl. Somebody puts on full pads for the first time, and you're going against some animal that's 300 pounds and 10% body fat and has been training every day to kick your ass. And then we tell the cop, we trained you, and maybe we deal with sanctuary trauma, organizational betrayal. And then the media says, look how evil and racist or power tripping this person is, when they were really out of their prefrontal cortex, scared for their life and spazzing out because they have not scrimmaged with full pads on. And as far as working out on duty, would you say for your favorite college or pro team, hey, they might get hurt practicing, so we're just going to watch a little game film and then go to the Super Bowl? Are you going to bet on the team in the Super Bowl that didn't practice for a month because they were worried about getting hurt in practice? The team that doesn't practice for a month, people are going to be pulling their hamstrings in the first quarter because they haven't been training. And this happens all the time, whether it's ugly use of force or people literally get injuries that you're going to pay work comp payouts and mental health payouts, or bad optics politically, so hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars after the fact, and that money could have been used for training. But how do we convince civilians and politicians, and are there enough police leaders that were, dare I say, real cops and proactive on patrol, hunting for felony arrests, wanted to be a detective, specialty unit, and then eventually a real cop is a leader and then goes to town hall and battles for a bigger budget? We need more staffing, so we have the logistics to put on more training, and we need more money to put on training, but it's going to save us money in the long run.
Yeah, go. It's a good thing you just raised your hand because I was going to go get me in trouble with what I was going to say. So you go.
I'm glad to help. You know, as I'm still actively serving, the hardest part has been in the last few years is getting people who are willing to do the job. And the irony is, you know, with the amount of time I have on, I'm kind of the rarity. I still like the job. I go in. I still say, as long as my knees and back are good, I'm going to still keep doing this job. So I've been sent out to kind of go and recruit people at these job fairs. And the hard part is when you talk to them, you're like, well, do you want to go into law enforcement? Do you want to be a corrections? Do you want to be a cop? And they're like, well, no. And I'm like, okay, well, why? And then you start getting their feedback and you hear all the negative things. And one of the things that I was able to get actual applications into people's hands and getting copies of their resumes was, can you help someone who is now in tunnel vision, fighting for their life, and say, hey, we won the fight? Can you tap that person out and say it's over? Well, yeah. I said, well, if you have the moral fortitude to do that, we need more of you. That's what we need to kind of stop these negative images that we have in the public. And then all of a sudden they start going, oh, so our recruitment is starting to finally pick up at my agency where we're seeing more people coming in. But it's hard to say, okay, well, you can go work out when we don't even have the staffing. You know, we just had a major snowstorm and most of the midnight shift couldn't even make it in. So how do you say, go and get some time in the gym? And our agency has two, like we have two locations, one in the main facility and then one on another facility. And Gronkowski designed these things. And it's still hard for people to get in and get in a workout because of the schedule, because by the time they get in, they know they may not be going home because they're getting forced to do another 8. So that's part of the problem.
Yes. And so we hear this all the time from departments because everybody is hobbling along. Everybody's short-staffed, overworked. And that is why. So, and Lawson knows this. We talk about trying to implement an admin hour or a wellness hour. And Gilbert PD has been doing that. They've been doing it for a long time. Chris talks about it all the time because the other departments that don't have that implemented, they're like, it's impossible. It's like, well, it's not impossible because they've been doing it. And there is a way to do that. Now, without getting the semantics of that, yes, you're short-staffed and everybody's overworked and they're working overtime and you don't have enough manpower. all the more reason to slow it down and let them work out or take time to talk to a coach or a psychologist or whoever while on duty, because you don't have anybody coming in the pipeline. You have to take care of the few people that you have right there. So is it better to lose them for an hour while they go work out, or lose them for the next 10 years and now you're down another person because they burned out because they couldn't take care of themselves? So that's that. Lawson, you want to echo that a little bit? Because I know you're dealing with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Alex is correct, right? The logistics of how do we do that? And my answer would be, let's figure it out. So that's what my department's doing. I've been there over 2 years now. We haven't implemented any kind of wellness hour, workout on duty hour. But guess what? We're talking about it, and I put it back to the people that could figure it out. Our lead officers, our agents, our training officers, our sergeants. How can we do this? And it I feel like I just have faith. I feel like it's going to happen, but you really have to get your people to, I mean, it's not just me wanting it. I'm retired. Like, I know what they need. It's using my experience to them and let them come up with them themselves. But I mean, we could go back to, I mean, we train in the academy. We're in the best shape of our lives. And then we just forget that for 25 years, 24 years, however long you work. It's crazy. And I think as we get older, most of us here, we realize how important, staying healthy, physically fit, mentally healthy, how important that is later, sometimes in our career. Like these young officers need it early, where that's just the rest of the career, where it's, trying to figure out how they can do it on their own. Like, that's not a good plan. Assuming they're going to be able to do it off duty, that's not a good plan. They're tired, they're burnt out. Like, I'm talking to those officers where they used to meal prep and now they're not meal prepping anymore. I used to work out. Now they're not doing that anymore. So we have to do better as departments. When I get at Alex, it's easier said than done. But the more, just like Gilbert Police Department, it's almost the same size as my department. They are doing it. And there's departments in San Diego that are doing it. And each department has their own way of doing it. But again, we got to do something proactively. If we're not, it's just, they're going to get burned out.
Well, and I love that. I want to echo that too before anybody else jumps in. Because when you're in it, the departments that are in it, that you've hemorrhaged people, you're running on fumes, you can't see the forest through the trees. So that is where hiring somebody like law enforcement coaching or an external that can come in, because Mike, you said it. How? You just got to figure out the how. How do you make it? It's impossible. It might be challenging. Is it going to happen overnight? Probably not. But can you take those little steps towards, and when I say little step for a department, so like Alex, your department, what would be the first step? Is just sitting around having the conversation of, hey, it's not impossible. There are departments that are doing it, and just having that awareness so that you can start moving the needle one little step at a time. Awareness first. There is a way to do it. We just haven't figured it out. So what can we do to do that? And when you are operating from very minimal, here's the mindset shift too that I want people, because I see this all the time. A lot of departments are operating in we're short staffed, we should have this many people. And because you're always going against the we should have, now you're in lack. Shift the mindset. What if this was all you had for your department? What if you were at max capacity with the number that you have right now? Now you're no longer short staffed. This is what you get to work with. How are you going to make it work? My dad was one officer responsible for a 72-mile radius by himself. He was on 24/7. He had his shifts, but we had a sheriff sign in the front yard. So if he was just on all the time. He'd be taking me to school. We're pulling people over. I'm late for school. So I'm true story. So there is a way. You just have to figure out what that way looks like and shift the mindset around it. And what do you want to focus on? So that is a really good bringing this together of the resolutions for success for the departments, that you're not going to have a flood of people coming in right now. And think of it like a tech company as well. Chris and I have been talking about this behind the scenes. The tech companies, all of this cutting edge AI that's coming out to the masses right now is new. Woo, it's fancy. Guess what? For the tech companies, it's already obsolete. What we have at our fingertips, they have moved on from. They are already 5 years ahead of what's next. So if the departments start thinking ahead, I know departments typically think 1 to 2 years in advance, maybe 3 years. They might say they have a 5-year plan, but the reality is you don't, because things are changing too much. But if you look at it from what are we going to do now that's going to set us up for success in 5 years from now? So you guys are short staffed. You're not working out on duty right now. But what if you could move the needle that in 5 years, working out on duty is just par for course?
For me, it's up to date. I come at it from a different angle. So back where I was a cop, my backup was 45 minutes away, if not an hour and a half on a good day. And one of the things that I learned real quick is the mindset of no one's coming to save you. And that can feel really powerless until you come to a point where you realize, like, there's power in this. What can I do? And the reason I say that is because I was with a small department where they didn't have any resources and there's no funds. Like I wanted to be a canine officer. I had to buy my own dog. If I wanted to be a sniper, I had to buy my own sniper rifle. So we had to learn, like, what can I do for myself? And there's a mindset that kind of shifts when you start to realize, like, what can I do in my life to make my life better so I have something for my cop, regardless of what's happening outside of me? Because we can't control that. We can't control the departments. We can't control the department's decisions. We can influence it. We can't control it. So a lot of cops can look at this, go, I'm going to get burnt out. The system never changes. I give up. That's a terrible mindset. Look back, I'm like, what can I do? How can I make my world better? How can I save myself first so that I can then go out and continue to save others? That mindset shift for me was one of the most profound ones, and it completely transformed my life.
So we've recently had a lot of newer officers coming in, and word got out that I had written 2 books and all the other things that I do between promoting comedy, travel the country. And somebody was asking me how the book was going. And then this other officer went, how do you do all that? I went, really good with time management. And now all of a sudden what he started to see was there was a lane of opportunity, of possibility. I can do more than just this. That's going to be beyond my identity. Like I've been a corrections officer for almost 3 decades. It's part of who I am. It's the career I've had, but it's not who I am. It is part of who I am. And I think that where we get wrapped up in a lot is that's our identity. Those are the people we keep in our circle. Those are the only ones that feel like we can relate to us in the days that we've had. But in the end, when you become more and you realize the whole world isn't that bad and you're allowing all these other good inputs to come in and trying opportunities, the yes and, which has always been something I've done, you start finding ways to broaden your skill set on the job. It just, for me, now I'm paying taxes on comedy, which is brutal. But when you have these conversations with people who are still positive about doing the job and are finding successful ways to do it and have, survived it this long. And honestly, I've survived, almost 28 years now. And that's rare. So these younger guys are like, how'd you do it? You still smile. And I go, because I don't let this place get to me. I learned very early on to not make this everything about me. I'm going to have a bad day here that I can't explain to people outside of here.
There was another thing I wanted to say too. I'm going to call out, this was what was going to get me in trouble, but I don't care because it needs to be said. Because departments are short-staffed, they are underfunded, they are struggling, and you have people in political decision-making positions that have 0 law enforcement experience. They've never stepped foot inside of a patrol car. They don't really even know cops. They take a more I won't say they'll take an approach that makes it harder for cops. So what I would say, if you are a politician that is in a decision making, wherever your political beliefs, I don't care. But if you are making decisions that are going to impact law enforcement and first responders, before you make that decision, what I would ask you to do is go to your local PD, your sheriff's office, whatever, not just go for an hour-long ride along. Go shadow an entire day or a week. Go sit in with the dispatchers. Go to corrections, go talk to them, go for a ride along in one of the busier places. Don't go sit on a country road pulling people over and writing tickets. Go into the heart of where you have the problems with your homeless community, with your drug addiction, with the domestic violence. And then once you've done that for a day or a week, then go back and make the decision of how much budget you actually want to give to your officers. Okay.
Concur. a lot of the civilians out there, whether it's the politicians or the people voting in politicians that are or have defunded the police, go through a Citizens Academy if they have them anymore. I know a lot died during COVID. Citizens Academy and ride alongs, evening or graveyard shift in the more dangerous districts wherever you live, and do it more than once. So you meet more than one cop to try to get an idea of it. And I also think a good book, especially even if people on this panel haven't read it, Mark Bouchard, Setting My Sights on Stigma, Thoughts from an Injured Mind, RCMP, SWAT dude, ex-hockey player, guy's guy, worked through PTSD and stayed on the job. A lot of these retired cops that write books things went really bad. They didn't take care of themselves. And then 5 or 10 years later, they say it's okay not to be okay and get help when you're in a dark place. Mark's book updates Kevin Gilmartin and Dave Grossman, has Brene Brown, Gavin DeBecker stuff, Gift of Fear, which is about your gut instinct. So many good things in his book. I would urge civilians, not just cops, civilians to read that book, Setting My Sights on Stigma, Citizens Academy, and go freaking ride along. Entire shifts, evening, graveyard, weekends, and dangerous places before you make decisions on cops.
And I can already hear, I hear the pushback of the cops being like, I don't want somebody coming on a ride along with me when I'm working because it can be dangerous. But if we want to make impact and change, we have to teach because the communities don't understand. And I think that's where a huge part of the disconnect and the problem lies, is because the communities, the civilians they don't understand. They only know what is in the headlines and the news and the stories. They don't understand. I was a cop's daughter. I was raised in a different mindset. Was taught at a very young age, you don't put things in writing. Don't put things out into the world that you don't want to have come back and bite you on the ass. You have to, not trust people. Look for these things. This is why and when I learned how to drive, when my dad taught me how to drive, yes, sir, no, sir. Yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. The side of the road is not a court of law. Don't argue. Don't try to, and this is a huge problem, and I've said it a couple times, but these viral influence videos that are going out that are teaching people that when you get pulled over, that you think you have rights and that you don't have to ID yourself and you don't have to roll down the window and you don't have to do this and da 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 da, and you're a sovereign, you're traveling, shut up. No. If you get pulled over, you need to provide identification. And I will tell you, for anybody that's a civilian listening to this, there are reasons for that. It's not that they're just trying to give you a ticket or get you in trouble. In Arizona, you know how many criminals we have? Do you know how many bad guys are on the road and they don't want to ID themselves? So if you are not a criminal and you're not doing anything wrong, it's okay to give the ID. So many people are getting arrested and tased and hurt because they're learning from the internet of how they think they're supposed to act with the police, and you're getting everybody hurt. So stop it. Okay. I'm on a mom tangent today, but okay. On that note, I want to honor everybody's time. So there was a lot of good nuggets of wisdom in this. If somebody were to just tune in to this last part of the podcast, what is your 2-second mic drop takeaway for the audience that can help set them up for success this year? Whoever wants to go first.
I'll go. Everyone here in one way or another talked about something called post-traumatic growth. And I know cops don't like to read, so maybe get on Audible or maybe look up other podcasts, but there's an orientation of psychological research called post-traumatic growth that will cover things that will help you learn how to use your adversity and your suffering to become a better person rather than this job ruined my life. So I encourage that. And also, I want to be careful. I agree with leaning into the suck, but dealing with high warrior archetype, alpha men, athletics, military, law enforcement, a lot of times we can cover up emotional reactivity by let me do my CrossFit and jujitsu and obsess over my meal prep, and I'm still avoiding being in touch with my thoughts and feelings. So the doing hard things or embracing the suck looks a lot differently. It's taking your foot off the gas, silence, solitude, whether it's a therapist or a mentor or elder, somebody that you trust, that you can put your guard down and share part of your story, which is part of post-traumatic growth. So take your foot off the gas. Self-care is not selfish. maybe learn a little bit about post-traumatic growth.
Just to kind of echo some of what Matt said, talk to somebody, take that baby step and talk to somebody culturally competent, talk to a coach. If you can't find somebody in your area, get a hold of us. We'll help you find somebody in your area, or you can use one of us, but talk to somebody, get that ball rolling. And you have to be careful, especially talking to your peers or talking to maybe somebody that you're working with, that 9 times out of 10, they're just going to pile on. They're just going to commiserate. They're just going to agree with you. This place sucks. They're going to say the same thing. This place sucks. It's just going to make things worse. You need to find that person that you can trust outside of your agency. Talk to somebody and start that healing and that growth just by talking to somebody. And get up and do something. Move. Get up and move. Go for a walk. Walk up the street and back. If that's all you do, just do something to get started.
I'll go. Change your input. Allow good things in. Don't think everything is the worst thing in the world. Allow a little bit of humor and a dark point. Don't feel guilty if you laugh at a dark moment, because that is a normal reaction to a stressor, to getting it out. It may look like you're laughing and like ha ha ha, but it's not. It's a normal reaction to stressors and bad moments. So just be patient with yourself.
And I want to jump in really quick because that was something we had talked about and I wanted to bring up, because maybe the officers don't understand why they're doing it. And the community, if they see body cam footage or a social media camera, whatever, of an officer at a scene, a crime scene, whatever, and they're laughing, you need to have the understanding of what's going on. There are only so many emotions that you can feel in that moment. And if you see cops laughing or first responders laughing at a scene, don't be like, oh my God, they're monsters, they're heartless. Da, da, da. No, that is what they're doing at the moment to get through it. Because if they don't do that, they're getting just crushed by the emotions. They feel that shit too. So I'm kind of just yelling at everybody today, but I feel like the internet needs to get yelled at right now. But you need to understand that there is a real good reason for that, and then to be able to process. So yes, laughing, and for the officers too, the understanding, if you're at these calls, even not in law enforcement, like my daughter fell down. Oh, no. Okay. We were at the grocery store and she ran into a sign, and my first reaction was just to laugh my ass off at it, then check in with if she's okay. But it's okay to laugh. Laughter is truly the best medicine. So allow yourself to have that lightheartedness a little bit. So I just wanted to say that. Who else is going?
I'll go next. Yeah, just when you're setting your goals, just make sure you don't have too many. Keep it simple, attainable goals. And then, yeah, just back to the check-in part is huge on any kind of goal setting. Have that person that you trust that you could talk to. And I would even pay it forward to somebody that you could check in with also, either at your work, a friend, maybe you haven't talked to in a while. Just randomly check in with them. Like, that can go a long way. I think we're all going through stuff. We all say we're good. I think we've all learned there's some wisdom here that we all have stuff going on, and what are you doing about it? And not waiting, proactively doing something about it, not waiting till it gets overwhelming.
And everything's already been said. It's been phenomenal. I know Matt kind of basically stole exactly the words verbatim, so that was tough. But no, it's kind of the looking at it as good. And anybody's seen Jocko talk about this, but anything that happens to you, have the mind frame of good, not great, because we have to accept for reality what it is. But then how can I make this better? And that's post-traumatic growth is one of the most powerful tools. Whatever bad happens to you, how can you find a way to make this the best possible situation? And just working towards that is one of the most powerful tools in building resilience. And as we know through resilience, it's just like strength training. You only get better by doing more of it. If you're not doing your push-ups, you're not going to get stronger. So it's one of those things, like, you have to do your mental push-ups as well. Don't get ready for a gunfight after you've been in a gunfight. You got to get ready beforehand. And that's also mentally. What are you going to do when you're mental gunfight? You need to get ready before you're in that, not after.
And I want to just round it up and echo what you guys just said too in Lawson. It can be overwhelming. If you've never done it before, it's uncomfortable. You don't even know where to start. You're like, okay, do I go here? What's the right thing? Da 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 da. Echoing what everybody said. Slow it down. Small it down. Make it one thing. What can I do If you never step foot into a gym, you're not going to go work out 5 days a week. You're going to research where the gyms are and then maybe do a trial. If your department, doesn't have workout on duty or they're short staffed or whatever, it's possible. Start looking at the how. How can I make little shifts? Because again, it's not about crash courses and everything. It's lifestyle. It is training and lifestyle changes. And in order to have the lifestyle, you have to slowly ease into it before it just comes second nature. But if you try to just go in on a heavy, let's do it all at once, you're setting yourself up to fail. So bite-sized baby steps forward, and then eventually you will see the success. So with that, thank you guys all for being here. For the audience tuning in, feel free to comment, push back, like it, subscribe, do all the things, and, share the parts that I yelled at certain people that need to be yelled so we can get some funding to help you guys. Okay, until next week.